Welcome once again to Take 5, an inventory series, where we prepare ourselves for the week ahead by taking a look back at what just happened in healthcare. I'm Alex Diamond, and I got Hayes Waldrop of the Council of Supply Chain Executives to give me one more round of insights into hospitals' response to the coronavirus crisis. Having heard about emergency command centers popping up, I wanted to know how prepared hospitals were for this emergency, and how able they are to come together in times of dire need.
Yeah, I was a little surprised about how prepared they were to do those type of command centers. I had never really had those conversations. I didn't know much about it, but generally speaking, all of them kind of had a plan in place, and a lot of it had to do with your local, your state emergency management. They do these tabletop exercises. I think it's at least once a year, in some cases two times a year, and they brainstorm these type of things a little bit. And I think, again, I didn't realize that most systems already had this in place. So yeah, I think they'll definitely probably just make those a little bit bigger, more robust, put a little bit more staff around it. And also, I think there's been some kind of unique hires, like Hospital for Special Surgery in New York City. He hired he was a nurse, but he was a combat nurse, 25-year Green Beret. And he's been brought on to help, in that crisis, how to deal with it, how to talk to the frontline workers. I mean, it was to put the plan in place because he'd been there. He'd literally been in battlefield, ORs. You learn a lot from the valleys, not necessarily from the peaks. And so I think that's what they've done. And I think they're going to, if we ever have one again, I hope not in my lifetime, but if it does, I think they'll be there. I think it'll be pretty much on point at that point. Right now during the pandemic, right when a hurricane hits, right when something really bad happens, I think they all work together really well. I think they throw out the competitive, landscape. I can speak from personal experience. Our last CEO meeting was in March 6th in San Antonio, which happened to be right when the pandemic really, really started taking off. And one of the CEOs that's in our group, large CEO. He's got about 14, 15 hospitals, but he's a for-profit guy. And he came back to the meeting and goes, "This is real, guys. This is already hitting us." He began to tell us how it all was unfolding. And he shared all kinds of information, documents, CMO reports, protocols. And he's like, "It's not time to be competitive. This is time to help people." And so I think even to the smaller, hospitals, clearly it makes sense for them to be part of something bigger. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. And I think most of them are there. And so I would hope and encourage them, if they were asked, which they wouldn't, but if they did, they do need to come together and create at least regional networks. And honestly, FEMA and our state emergency management organizations, they need to do a much better job at that. I think they definitely dropped the ball on, basically the way they allowed the products and, ventilators and all that stuff to be moved around. That wasn't done. I don't think it could have been done much better. And that's where the communities came together. Literally they were sewing masks and making, even at Atlantic City, they were making their own gowns out of painter tape and stuff. I mean, it was ridiculous, but they did. Healthcare workers are fantastic at what they do. They're warriors, and they showed up, and somehow they all did it. When something happens, tornadoes, hurricanes, whatever, pandemic, I think they'll all definitely come together. And they did this time. I know that for a fact. But long term, when things kind of go back to normal, maybe first quarter, second quarter, and things kind of look the same, I think we're going to be competitive again. I mean, I think that's just the way it is.
That's all the time we have for this week. Listen again next week as we talk about hospital vendors' responsibility to make healthcare workers' lives easier. Take 5 is a production of Z5 Inventory. To see all of our sources and resources for this episode and more, visit z5inventory.com. That's the letter Z, the number 5, and the word inventory.com.